I think we got the best fans in the league. The Arrowhead carries the torch for being the best fans in the league. Some of the loudest ones and the most fun ones. So
the atmosphere, the fan base, the support groups had an impact on our season.
This fan base is dialed in.
Like I'm gassing you guys up and gassing up the state of Utah, but it's the truth. You guys have one of the best fan supporter groups.
I'm going home to play for my hometown team. Looking back to when I was 10 years old, that's every kid's dream.
Welcome to another episode of the Arrowhead podcast. We are your official podcast of the official supporter group of the Archers Lacrosse Club. And we are so excited for this episode today. This is our second set of parents. We started off with Bo's parents, and today we have with us Richard and Heather Dobson, Brett Dobson's parents. So Richard and Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
We're so excited to have you on. I know we're just kind of laughing about this, but Brett kind of set you guys up for this. He wanted to have his parents on. I think when they came out to Utah, we're at the Dick's Sporting Good event, and we just had Bo's parents on, and he's like, I want to get my parents on. And so we're messaging back and forth on Instagram. He's like, hey, can we get my parents on at some point? I'm like, absolutely, let's get this done. So we're so grateful you guys would be on and to talk about Brett a little bit and your guys' family. So as we start every episode, who are Richard and Heather Dobson? Tell us about the Dobson family.
Go ahead. Well, we met at university. We were both at the University of Toronto in physical and health education. So we met through there. I grew up playing sports, so did Rich. I was mainly volleyball and softball. And you were basketball. He played everything, basketball, soccer, racket sports. So sports was a big part of our growing up, and we're both phys ed teachers, retired phys ed teachers, and we wanted the kids to be active and hopefully find something they're passionate about. And I had never played lacrosse, never really heard of lacrosse until we got teaching jobs out here in Durham, which is near Toronto. And kids were literally walking around the streets with lacrosse sticks in their hands when we first kind of moved in here, which was kind of novel, but we're in a hotbed of lacrosse in Ontario. And that's kind of where our introduction to lacrosse came, at least mine. Anyways, you may have a little bit different exposure to it.
No, like I said, we're both teachers. One of my former students was Gavin Prout. So when I started teaching, Gavin was in grade 9, and I started watching all of his games and got hooked. When I grew up in Quebec. There was no lacrosse at that point. So lacrosse just sort of became, we saw it through Gavin. We saw the games, the Brooklyn Lacrosse Club, as it's called now. We'd go to those games in the summer, and we became kind of hooked, and the kids found it. And now we're retired teachers who just drive around and fly around watching the kids play lacrosse all over the world as much as possible.
And the other thing too with lacrosse for our kids in Whitby, you could start playing at 4 years old. So Brett, as soon as he could walk, was into sports, like shooting basketballs on a Fisher Price basketball hoop. And so he's always been into any type of sport. So he played soccer at 4, and lacrosse was another thing that he could start playing at 4. And our daughter is a lacrosse player as well. So they both started playing at 4. And it just kind of went from there.
That's awesome. And, we've had the pleasure of watching Brett for the last few years as a Utah Archer. And I think one of the things that every fan picks up pretty quickly is his personality. Like he's electric, and he seems like one of the funniest guys ever. I was curious, what do people maybe know or not know about Brett off the field? And if you have any, funny stories about Brett that you remember from him growing up.
Where to start?
Well, he's a goalie, so things aren't always normal. So we got lots of different things we could be talking about all over the place.
He was a lacrosse related one. He had a lacrosse game and he forgot his chest protector. So that's very Brett. To forget things, especially when he was younger. So he was prepared to go in net with some newspaper as his chest protector. And unfortunately, we weren't there. He's afraid to call us and tell us he'd forgotten his chest protector. So another parent actually stopped him from going in net with newspaper as a chest protector. But that's a one. Yeah.
The biggest one off the field these days is during COVID. Brett tends to think he's a card player. So we had about a year and a half worth of euchre family tournament. And my daughter Kylie and I were teammates, and Heather and Brett were teammates. And Heather and Brett went 0 for a year and a half. They did not win a single game. So if anybody wants to win money with Brett, like win something, challenge him to a euchre game. And he gets upset a few times. He drops some words he probably shouldn't say after he loses. But he had a very, very rough patch of 0 for COVID, a year and a half or so of losing euchre games.
And with that, the Archers team this last training camp, they had mentioned to us that they were playing a lot of games, a lot of card games, and I'm sure you guys heard that his nickname was Greaseball with all of the cheating in the cards that he did. Is that pretty familiar to you
Well,
guys?
that's the first time we've heard the backstory to the grease ball. So that's
I didn't know where he got that. I wasn't. The door was opening there, and I wasn't sure where it would be. So I actually, I can honestly say I would never have accused him of cheating when he's playing with us. Well, and his record
I
shows
was
if
gonna
he
say,
did, he
he's
did do a
not
very
very
good
good
job at
cheating
it.
if he did. But
Yeah, no, we probably have other ones. It just depends on where we're going to try and have some of the conversations.
I think he'd look at your hand if you weren't covering it for sure.
Oh yeah, one of those ones. Yeah.
Totally.
One of my biggest ones that was away from lacrosse. What was it? I think Brett's 5 years. For 5 years, Brett played 4 rep sports in a year, in the season or in the year. So he started out playing AAA hockey, which was the highest level around here. He did that in the winter, and I used to run a basketball club. So he played rep basketball for me, but that worked completely around his hockey season. And then in the summer, he was playing lacrosse, but he also won 2 provincial championships in baseball. And at one point, it might not surprise you, Brett ticked me off. He wasn't being very thankful about the rides he had, all that kind of stuff. So he became known as the kid who had to ride his bike everywhere he went because he wouldn't be allowed to be driven to any of the sporting events. I said, I'll get your goalie bag, I'll get everything there, and I don't care if it was 10 miles. He was on his bike, and he had to get there and come back. And after that month, he was actually a whole lot more appreciative, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And in shape.
All the poor parents who wanted to drive him home.
Yeah,
And
can we drive him home? No, he's going to learn a lesson. They'll say thank you next time he gets out of the car.
A goalie's got to get his conditioning in somewhere.
Oh no, goalies like to try to avoid their conditioning a little bit. But yeah, well, and then we get his first. I'm not sure if I've ever told you this story. His first ever lacrosse game. He was 4 years old. I was the coach, and everybody has to go in net. So, okay, kid, you're going in net, and he'd never had a mouth guard in his mouth before. You remember this one?
Mhm.
So we get the team uniform. He puts the mouth guard in. He's in net, and he starts gagging on his mouth guard. So eventually, he gags, and he actually ends up throwing up. And it's in his mask, and it's down the front of his shirt. And like that, I just puked. Yeah, I know. We got to keep playing because you're the only goalie. Let's go. So that was literally the start of his lacrosse career, was puking down the front of his shirt,
Yeah.
gagging on a mouth guard.
Well, we knew we were in trouble with him being a goalie. He'd been begging Rich to go in net for when he started playing rep. And we knew we were in trouble when he finally went and played a rep lacrosse game. And I think we lost 22-4 to Peterborough, who is another lacrosse powerhouse up here. And I went on to talk to him on the floor. And he goes, Mom, that is the most fun I've ever had playing lacrosse. So he got scored on 22 times, and he still thought that was the best thing ever. And that's when we knew we were in trouble, that he's going to be that was in box lacrosse, but yeah, he was going to be a goalie through and through. And he was a hockey goalie as well. So yeah, we couldn't get that out.
Yeah.
Most
Goalies
kids
are
would have said, I
built.
never want to go in net again, but he thought that was the most fun he'd ever had.
I love that. And I don't know if you know, I have a goalie. My youngest is a goalie.
Oh,
I'm
our
sorry.
condolences.
Yeah, so that's going to lead into my next question here. So, couple of things. So, like, as a parent, you've had your son's played all over the world, played at every level. You kind of told some funny stories. Give us a proud moment when you look back, like that was one of the proudest moments as a parent. And then my last question in this is like, I'm a parent of a goalie. Does it get any easier? Like my kid is in eighth
No.
grade. He's 13. It's like feels like it gets worse. It's like it's brutal, like nail biting. I feel like I'm the parent who stands off to the side and watches the game. You guys have been through every level. Talk to us about being the parent of a goalie, proud moments, and all that.
Probably my proudest moment for him. I mean, there's a lot of them. He's made us proud over and over and over again. But I think the first time I saw him, I might tear up on this one. Walk out wearing a Canada jersey, and at World Games in Birmingham, he led the team out carrying the flag, and that was a pretty proud moment. And then the winning the first championship and him being named MVP was pretty special.
No house league championships, they don't count?
Those count too.
Those count too. Yeah, like I said, the first time, actually, both kids represented Canada, and as soon as the national anthem started.
No, you're going to tear up too. Sorry, we're a little sappy.
Yeah, so it was good.
Yeah, but in terms of advice for goalie parents, we're kind of lucky in that we know Brett doesn't get nervous. He gets excited to play big games, and I think that's part of maybe why he plays big in big moments. So that's comfort for me in knowing that he's not nervous. He thrives in these moments. And then the other thing too is there's absolutely nothing you can do as a goalie parent. There's nothing you can do. So you can get stressed. It's an unfortunate position because his mistakes, even if they're not mistakes, appear to be a mistake because he's the final line of defense. So usually things have broken down in front of him. But I kind of just think there's nothing I can do to help him play better. He's prepared. He's practices. He takes shots. He studies shooters. He does everything he can to be ready. So that's kind of, we're lucky in that sense that I know he's good to go. He thrives on it. He's excited to always play. And that kind of helps me stay calm as well.
I found that you almost sort of detach and say, there's literally nothing I can do. It's like when someone else is driving. It's a scary road. It's out of my control completely. I will sit back and see what happens. And well, I do, like I said, I've got notes on my phone from, I think, 2008 and different things like that, where I would talk about things to work on as a goalie. We always have those long car ride home from hockey or any other sport. And you'd be going, okay, on this goal, this happened. And Brett, you may have figured out he's a student of the game. He will analyze everything and talk about it. And he would love to have those conversations. Mm-hmm. We'd try to have the same conversation with our daughter and she'd be like, I'm fine. Don't talk to me about the game.
Yeah.
But Brett would want to sit there and break down everything. And we kind of got ticked off. We went to see him a game in university. We drove 4 hours and the game was over and we're at the social afterwards at the Burton. And he's not even coming over because he's at home already watching the video.
Oh, right. At the game. He's already analyzing the game film.
In his recovery pads, doing all that kind of stuff. And we're like, we got to see you. But when you put all that practice and stuff in, it makes our lives easier, but realize there's nothing you can do about it. No sense getting stressed about it. No sense hitting the beer afterwards too hard. It's going to happen.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. There's nothing
but you got to get used to it.
There's nothing you can do about it
100%.
Except make sure they're prepared as best they can.
I love your guys' answers there, and it resonated. Like my oldest, when he was a senior in high school, got invited out to train with the England national team. And seeing him just in a penny with the words England on the front, I'm like, this is what you dream for as a kid, as a parent, to see your kid dressed in national team. So I love that was your proud moment. And then, do you ever get the sense with Brett, like, does he change? Like, he's Brett, the off-field guy, and then like he locks into that like goalie mode, like game on. Sure. He locks in, and you can just see it in his eyes.
Well, we don't see his eyes because he won't make eye contact with us. So sometimes he'll glance at you and give you a bit of a nod, but he's zoned in. So we know kind of through all the years that he's not going to make eye contact. He's going to be ready. He's spent so much time studying film and he has notes and he's going to be ready. So he's locked in pretty much from the time the last game finishes till his next game starts in terms of reviewing and seeing what he needs to do better and training and taking shots. And
yeah, he would, like, we know. Just watch him go. Don't try and have a conversation. It's game day. He needs to do his prep, all that kind of stuff. And then once the game is over, then he's pretty much back to regular Brett, and we'll have a good conversation. Yeah. Goofy, and he'll talk about and we will break down, what went well and how the defenses worked. And as a goalie parent, you can say what are good goals that went in. Some goals you have no chance. Like, you're not getting mad at it. Like, I'll finish a game all season and say, okay, I think there was 3 you probably could have had. There was 4 that you had no chance. So don't get mad at those. But yeah, when it's game day, don't even talk to him. Like we've got family members who were saying, "Oh, I was trying to talk to Brett," and it's like, don't. Like you're wasting your time. It is not something he should be doing. It's not something we want him doing. It's not something he wants to do. He is in the zone, and let him go.
That's really cool. First of all, I appreciate having you guys on here. It's been awesome, Richard and Heather, to get to know you guys a little bit. And I can see
Thank
where
you.
Brett gets his little banter personality from. And it's been fun to get to know him a little bit more based on the two people who raised him. So I can see where he gets that competitive attitude from.
Yes, very, very competitive family.
Yeah.
Especially when
I
his
think
little sister is beating him at something, it doesn't go well.
No, but I think you guys have this healthy relationship with sports, and it's been fun to see that. And he's gone very far. I kind of want to backtrace a little bit. Um, you guys mentioned he started at 4 years old, picked up a stick, was playing several different sports, and goes to high school. Maybe the high school isn't the top tier program in the area, goes to a college where it's not a top tier program. What kind of helped that jump from going to these? Like, I don't know what the expectation was when he went out to college, or has it always been, I want to be the best goalie in the world? Because coming from these smaller programs and then representing Canada and being one of the best goalies in the world, like what kind of brought him that success along the way?
I'll go because actually, I'm wearing my high school lacrosse shirt. He came to my high school for grade 9, and we were not. It's lacrosse, and my high school isn't very big. He actually played righty attack because that year I had the best 97 year birth goalie, 98 and 2000
In the area.
And so he was playing attack. I think we won the Lobster Championship around here. But then he went to the Hill Academy. And don't confuse the Hill Academy with the school that's not very good.
No,
In
yeah,
high
the Hill
school,
Academy
he
is very
had
famous,
3 North American or U.S.
He won the
national
Geico.
championships. They won the Geico twice. They won the prep school one. And when he was there, that's when he really took off.
Yeah.
Like they stress, trust the process, do all the work properly. And they were like, that brought the most out of him, I think.
Yeah, that he begged us to go to. So the Hill Academy is probably, I mean, some people would argue with this, but probably the best prep school in Canada.
Yeah.
And they only used to compete against American schools, and they were ranked top 20 in North America. So it was they were at a big program. And one of the best things was he had a goalie coach. It was the discipline that it taught him to be a student athlete. You were an athlete, you practiced every day, you lifted every day, you did school every day. And we found with both of our kids going there that the transition to university was seamless, where other kids weren't used to that grind that is essentially mimicking what was happening when you go to university as a student athlete. So they transitioned really, really easily to that, and just learning from some of the greatest players. I don't know if you guys know who Brody Merrill is, but Brody and
Absolutely.
Patrick Merrill, their family is the founder of that school. And Brett made great friends. He's actually out right now with one of his former coaches who became a great mentor for him in high school when he was struggling with a few things, and became a close friend after that. So yeah, the Hill Academy, I think, was really what took him over the top. In spite of that, though, I mean, he only had one offer from St. Bonaventure, Coach Mearns at St. Bonaventure. So we're grateful for that. He was the Team Canada coach at the time. And Brett really connected with him on their first phone call and wanted to go to St. Bonaventure and play for Randy. And Randy's a close friend and mentor to Brett. So he still calls him if he's struggling with something in the PLL or in the NLL or something hasn't gone right for him. He'll call Randy and they'll sit down and have a chat, because Randy has played professionally. He's been captain of Canada's field lacrosse team. Just a great lacrosse mind and a really a player's coach. So Brett is a really strong connection. So in terms of pushing him, I do think going to the Hill, he originally said, no, Brett, no, like it was really expensive. It's not something we thought we could afford at the time. And he would wear me down. I was driving him to practices and begging me, please, mom, can I go? Because a lot of his friends were going. And I think he just walked in the door. So being able to send both our kids there really, I think, was a turning point in their lacrosse careers. And I think that's what took him over the top.
Yeah, like I said, and being a goalie, Well, we played for, at the time it was Edge, and they were one of the best travel teams around, and they didn't get to see much rubber, so they'd win a game 22-1, and you couldn't see what the goalies were doing, and that was probably grade 8, grade 9, somewhere in there. And then I think for me one of the best ones was probably grade 12 year when they were playing in the prep national championship, and they had to play against Culver, like real strong team.
Yeah.
And at the end of the first half, Brett had made 14 out of 15 saves. Culver, probably they were ranked number 1 in the country. They thought they were the better team, probably, but they didn't win any of the championships that year. And like, Brett just doing that work and getting there was when, I think, to me, that was one of the best ones where I said, okay, he's really doing well. And then when it came to St. Bonaventure, like I said, nobody else really wanted him because he didn't get seen that often in some of the other ones. So, and then he's got a bit of a work ethic when it comes to lacrosse, right, Brett?
Yeah, for sure. What's up, fellas? How are you doing?
What up?
Yeah. So, yeah, and he just wants to put the work in, and like he is also was fairly spoiled because one of the kids who was Brett's age was Dyson Williams, so you may know from there. So Brett started playing lacrosse on the same team as Dyson at 5. They played in the same house league at 4. I coached Brett and Dyson in basketball for several years, but Brett would grow up being in Dyson's dad Sean's team dressing room at the time Toronto Nationals as a ball boy, like just be around all that kind of stuff. All that led to him just having that drive and wanting to be around it and seeing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We were lucky.
That's awesome.
So I have a follow-up question for you guys. You talked about playing club and all these places and the different coaches that made a difference. For a goalie, talk to me about your guys' choices as where he played in terms of a goalie coach. So I think that's something, certainly like here in Utah, like I look at a lot of the high school programs and there isn't really a goalie coach. So the goalies show up and they're like, well, just hop in cage, right? And that's what you get for a season, just you're in practice as a goalie. How important was those choices to have the right coaches in place for Brett?
Well, there is essentially no goalie coaching available, at least when Brett was coming through. I think there's a little bit more now, but when he was going through, there was no box lacrosse coaching and there was absolutely no field lacrosse coaching. So the first coaching he got, I believe, was at the Hill, and he had Evan Kirk. I'm not sure if you would know the name Evan Kirk, but was a professional box lacrosse goalie. Also played field, and he worked with Brett at the Hill, and it wasn't even he wasn't able to come every day. So it was 2 or 3 times a week that he was there. And that certainly helped. And I think he's still been a good connection for Brett to talk to and bounce things off of. But yeah, Brett kind of did a lot of it on his own. I mean, he's an athletic kid. And I think that's why he was successful up to that point in both box and field. But having a goalie coach in high school really, I think, helped him a lot.
Yeah, because we had literally, like I said, there was almost no instruction. When you're a box goalie, Whitby minor lacrosse, maybe if you're lucky, had one session where every kid who's a goalie went out with one of the pro box lacrosse goalies who was there and said, here you go, you can try this. And I'm not sure if you when Brett was growing up, field was not nearly as predominantly played. We would trying out for box, and then the box team the next week started playing field. And we had 5 or 6 weeks of field at the time, from early mid-April to basically Memorial Day weekend for Americans, and that was it. And then field was gone away, and then you're into box. And even worse for Brett, he would have box tryouts for lacrosse. At the same time, hockey would be trying out for the next year. So he'd be on the ice as a goalie, and then he'd be in net as a field goalie. So he'd go through in 7 days, had 3 completely different goalie type stuff. And the only thing he had any instruction on was basically the hockey goaltending, because we could find a lot of hockey goaltending instruction, and there was none. Now Brett's making up for that now. He goes to camps all over the place and does different things. But most associations, it's an afterthought. If your goalie's back there, he's just there to hopefully bail you out. But if not, you can blame him sometimes. And half the parents probably blame them, but they don't have the same expertise or anything else, or even know how to handle a goalie.
Yeah.
Because they are quite often different characters to begin with.
Yeah.
But how are you going to do things that's going to work for the player? That doesn't exist as much, at least around here that we've seen. But the hill was the best part for that because he actually had some instruction. It wasn't even a ton.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I was just, when he was talking about tryouts, we didn't know anything about field lacrosse the first year Brett was played. It's like, okay, you play for Whitby and I am minor lacrosse, you have to play field. We knew nothing about it. And I sent him to tryouts in his full box lacrosse gear for a field tryout because I said to him, you're in hockey tryouts, like you can't afford to get a ball off the foot and you can't get your foot in your skate. So you're going to go in that. And looking back, I'm a little embarrassed by that, to be honest with you.
No, that sounds very similar to a lot of us in Utah who, it's not a widely known sport quite yet, but it's been growing like crazy. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about, and one of the things that Brett is super open about, is his type 1 diabetes. And so I wanted to talk to you guys on the parent side of it. He's obviously a big advocate of bringing awareness to players and families about how he dealt with it. And I wanted to see, how did you guys deal with it? And, when did you find out? And what were some of the challenges that you guys had to face with that?
I'll go first, actually, because I was coaching Brett at that time. And I remember a week or two before we actually had him diagnosed, we're at practice and he's just dragging his butt. Like we had a race where we had to go around both goals and come back and touch a line. And he was probably 25 feet behind the rest of the people in front of him. And being the competitive guy he is, I said, whoever touches the blue line first wins. So he throws his stick from 35 feet away over everybody else's head to try and touch the blue line first. So I get mad at him, go sit on the side. He's like, I'm just not feeling very well. And then when he was first in the hospital, he was in pretty rough shape.
Yeah. So that was, I'd forgotten about that, but a couple of things that we realized. My dad was a type 2 diabetic, but he managed it as a type 1 with insulin. And because of that, I'd always kind of read up on diabetes. So I kind of knew what to look for. And you guys know Brett, he loves his teammates, loves nothing better than playing lacrosse. And one of the big warning signs, and actually we took him the next day, we were at a friend's house and all his lacrosse teammates were there. And Brett lied down on the deck and just watched them run around in the backyard. And that is so unlike Brett. And the parents are like, what's going on with him? This is so unlike him. And he eventually just came in and lied down on the couch and watched television when his team was outside playing. And I kind of looked at him and I was like, I think he's diabetic. And I actually took him to a walk-in clinic the next day. And the nurse asked me, she said, what's wrong with him? I said, I think he's diabetic. And she laughed at me. And I don't blame her, because I'm sure she gets a ton of parents coming in with, my kid has this, my kid has that. And she goes, oh, why do you think that? So I gave her the symptoms. And she came back 5 minutes later after they tested and said, yeah, he's diabetic. We're going to call the hospital and you're taking him over right now. So that was the start of it for us. But we were kind of lucky in that we've always thought, well, not lucky, but we were always grateful that diabetes is all Brett had, in the sense that it's something he can manage. It's something he has control over for the most part, even though there's times when it's really frustrating. So we were grateful for that, because there's so many people who have nut allergies that you have no control over, and other illnesses that they just don't have any control over. So we were grateful. I mean, it sucks that he has it and I wish he didn't, but we're grateful that that's all he has, and that he can still, chase down every single one of his dreams that he's ever had, and can still play lacrosse and do all the things he wants to do. It's just a little bit harder for him.
We were lucky being in the phys ed world. We knew some other people and knew some athletes, and we would go around and find as many high-level athletes who were type 1 diabetic. And there were some OHL, like high-level junior hockey players who, and if you're a type 1 diabetic, you're part of that club. You will work with a kid. So he got sweaters sent from him, from one of the other phys ed heads in the area. Their son was playing for Guelph, and Drew Dowdy, who was a really good hockey player for LA, was playing there. And the guy's name was Lee Salter, who was a type 1 diabetic. And he sent him all the stuff, met the kids when they came to play here. Brett got to meet him. He
still has this jersey, I think, the signed jersey. He wouldn't get rid of it. So I think that's part of why it's important for Brett, because he's been really lucky. There was a pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, actually, Dustin McGowan, who was a type 1 diabetic, and Rich actually emailed the Blue Jays, and Dustin reached back out to Brett. And he's had multiple experiences where he's been able to meet people and inspire them by them. And that's kind of why he likes to give back. And I think one of my favorite things about him being a professional lacrosse player is seeing him interact with fans, but especially diabetics and kids who've come up and made a poster with all this diabetic terminology and pictures that not many people would understand. And I just really love that. And I know if he finds out somebody is a diabetic, he'll spend a lot of time with them, talking to them. And I know he really enjoys that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's so cool that he is able to be that role model now, and that he can give back to the kids just like he was given. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I just to add on to that, I was chatting with a coworker last week who's type 1 diabetic, and I was talking about sports and what it would look like if you were to like run a marathon or do an endurance sport. And he was like, there's a lot of work outside that nobody realizes as far as insulin preparation, and especially like endurance sports where you have to take in carbs continually, and then you have to compensate for that plus the insulin. So it's awesome, first of all, that Brett's okay, but to also see him succeed at this level, because there is probably things that people don't understand that goes behind the scenes to have success on the field as well with diabetes. So that's pretty awesome. I just wanted to ask you guys a two-part question. You guys have touched on it. And so I would love to hear kind of the full perspective of watching Brett suit up for Team Canada. And in addition to that, 2028 and the Olympics. And I would love to hear what you guys are thinking on those two things.
Like I said, like our daughter was actually the first one to play for Canada. So that was probably the most emotional, because we'd never seen that before. But then when Brett played in Birmingham, we didn't expect him to start because Dylan Ward was supposed to be the starter. And then just before that tournament happened, Dylan broke his thumb. And we're like, oh man, we're just going to go down and enjoy the tournament. And now Brett's the guy. And he played really well. We didn't know what sixes at the time. It didn't seem like it was a goalie friendly game, and he had a great tournament. So yeah, it's emotional every time I see the kids play for Canada, and both Brett and Kylie played for Canada over the summer, and it never gets old seeing that.
We grew up. The World Junior Hockey Tournament is huge in Canada. That's every Boxing Day to the first few days into January, and we've watched that as a family since the kids were born. And Canada tends to do very well. And just seeing them, like when they sing the national anthem, when they were there, actually we almost tear up.
Yeah.
So it is, hopefully it will never get old. We are hopefully traveling to Japan in the next year or two or twice. The Women's World Lacrosse Championships are in Japan this coming summer. And then the next year after that is the men's. And then after that is 2028. And you don't ever want to think of making your travel plans ahead of time, but we know those things exist. And one of the things I don't like is having to wait every 4 years for some of these championships to happen, because the World Juniors for hockey happen every single year. And Brett he missed out at the time it was the U19. He had just finished grade 10, and we didn't even know the tryouts were going on because it wasn't even in the mix, because he was just the wrong age.
It's a little too young.
And then 4 years ago, when the guys played, where did the guys play at that year?
It was England.
I think it was over in England when they were there. And some of Brett's same year of high school, but they were born after September 1st. They were playing for Canada, and Brett missed it by 5 months or whatever the number is. And it depends on where you fall. And in trying to make the senior team is a whole lot harder than trying to make the U19 team. If you were a long pole and you were trying to wait for Brody Merrill to retire, you had to wait about 35 years, it seemed like.
Yeah.
He was just playing there the entire time.
Yeah. And in terms of the Olympics, I mean, it's 3 years away. Both of our kids are hopeful to go there. And I don't know, both of us grew up playing sports, and we both loved watching the Olympics. And to think that one or both of our kids could be walking in an opening ceremony, could be wearing an Olympic gold medal around their neck. I mean, Brett and I remember very clearly when the Winter Olympics were here in Vancouver in 2010, Brett and I stayed up till I think 2 a.m. watching the opening ceremonies and just talking about it, and who's going to be the final guest to come in, and the thought that Brett or Kylie could be walking in an opening ceremony or a closing ceremony. I don't know. It's hard to wrap my head around. It would be really, really special, but like it's 3 years away. Like nobody knew who Brett was 3 years ago, really, to be honest. So, Grayson Manning, I don't know if you guys have followed his summer at all. He's an up and coming goalie, and who knows, Grayson could be challenging Brett in 3 years. Dylan Ward could still be around. He keeps playing at an elite level. So we're hopeful that Brett will be in the Olympics and Kylie possibly too. But there's no guarantees. So
yeah, well, Brett was in 2010 when they had the Sidney Crosby golden goal.
Yeah,
they were playing hockey in the playoffs.
Yeah,
it was playoffs, and the game just finished, and all the kids from the hockey team just took their skates off, came out to the lobby where the game was on to watch the overtime and do that. So
Brett was still in his full goalie pad, like all his goalie gear is still on. That's a highlight memory from the Olympics. So to think that our kids could participate in something like that, that's surreal. Like that'll be a pinch me moment for sure if that happens.
There'll be some tears.
Absolutely. That's really cool. And we hope to see him there.
So do we.
Well, and one other thing that I wanted to ask you guys, number one, I appreciate you guys for your time again. It's so cool talking to the parents and talking about a player that we absolutely love. And one of the things, and this is more of a comment than a question, but one of the things that I absolutely love about Dobson is his loyalty to the fan base as well. He's been one of the biggest proponents for this podcast, for the supporter group, and as a guy who's super loyal to all things Utah, it's really cool to have a sports player, a lacrosse player come in and, from what we can tell, love Utah. Just a couple days ago, he's at the Mammoth, Utah Mammoth hockey game, and he's taking pictures with some of the players. Like that, to me, as a Utah fan, like that warms my heart. I'm like, that's the coolest thing in the world, to have a player that I love here also, rooting for, or at least, advocating for stuff from Utah. That's the coolest thing to me. And then question for you guys, going to the looking towards the future. Obviously we talked about the Olympics, but your son is obviously, he has so many accolades at this point too, back-to-back MVPs, the finals MVPs, in the PLL. What do you see as the future, for Brett? And what would you wish for him, as he grows up? What would you want for him?
I just want any and all of his lacrosse goals and dreams to come true. So I know, he did a lot in the PLL already in terms of winning the championships and MVP. I know he'd love, and he'll be the first to say the individual awards don't matter, but he would really love to get a goalie of the year award at some point. And he has a lot of unfinished business in the NLL where he wants to win a championship. He wants to be a goalie of the year there. He wants to be a playoffs MVP. He wants to represent Canada in box lacrosse. He unfortunately didn't make the team last fall. So he has a lot of goals and dreams and play for Canada in the Olympics and win a gold medal at the World Lacrosse Championship. So he has so many goals still left. So I just hope that at the end of the day that he can look back and say, he ultimately wants to be as good as Dylan Ward, basically, to be described at the same level as him in terms of the GOAT of Canada lacrosse. He wants to be right up there with all the other greats, I believe. But yeah, I just hope that whatever he wishes for his career, that he achieves it.
I'm just happy he's doing something he loves. Yes, I'd like him to win every single year, but he as long as he keeps playing and loves what he's doing and being very successful, like he'd like to play for 15 more years, then I could see him wanting to become a coach somewhere. Like, he doesn't have other job loves. Like, he's not going to want to go out and find some other thing to do. He would love if lacrosse was his entire life, not entire life, but the biggest part of his life for a long time. Like, that's how much he is into what he is doing. And when it's his happy place. I said, we talked about that story back when he used to go to the lacrosse festival down here in Whitby. There's a huge event, and the day before it's going on, he's like, this is my Christmas Eve. I'm going down there, and he would hang out with the little kid or the older kids, learning how to string sticks and sit there for 14 hours in a day and never want to leave. And that's where I feel now. The success would be great. I'd like him to play at a high level. I want him to be healthy, right? But and lacrosse isn't the most important thing. I'd like him to be a healthy, happy individual in life. But when it comes to lacrosse, he'd like to be successful. He's very competitive. He wants to win. If the Archers could win for the next 14 years with him in net, he would take that in a heartbeat. So,
Love it. You guys are so amazing. Thank you so much for giving us your evening, for being here, for being willing to have your son nominate you to be on a podcast. And thank you for
Hey,
sharing.
we've never done this before, so
You guys are pros. We'd never know. But thank you guys so much. I love your vision for your son. I love what you want for him. I think every parent is fairly similar, but it's so great. We love your son. Like, just know that, like, not just us as the podcast, but the state of Utah. The number of kids that we all interact with that are like, you guys get to talk to Brett Dobson. No way. Like, your son is a superstar here in the state of Utah, as he should be. My son's hope is that one day he gets to meet Brett halfway in the middle of the field playing for Great Britain, and he gets to shake hands with Brett playing for Canada. So more than likely probably with Canada winning, but that's another story. But like, he's inspiring the next generation. Like, and I love that. Like, then that's what we wanted for the state of Utah and for having a team here in Utah. And just know, like, he does that for us. So thank you guys for raising your son the way you did. So we appreciate you guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
That being said, we will wrap things up here. Heather and Richard, thank you again for your time. And Brady, you want to take us out?
Yeah, above all else, win. Let's go Archers.
Go
Above
Archers.
all else, go Archers. And Blue Jays, right?
Go Jays.
Right now, Jays are there. Yep.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for having us.
This podcast is not affiliated with the Premier Lacrosse League or Archers Lacrosse Club. This is an independent, fan-run podcast.
The arrowhead we aim, we fly through the chaos cut in the sky. Hit the mark, we never miss. The closest life and it starts with